The massive space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the empty space between star systems. It was supposed to be a place of peace, where different alien species could meet and talk without fighting. The station was huge, bigger than most cities, with gleaming metal walls and bright lights that could be seen from far away. Inside the main meeting room, dozens of alien beings sat around a circular table. They came from many different worlds, but they all belonged to the Galactic Council. The Council was powerful and controlled most of the known galaxy. They decided which planets could join them and which ones would be conquered. Commander Velthar stood at the head of the table. He was a Zapirian, one of the most feared races in the galaxy. Zapirians were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that glowed red in the dark. They had sharp teeth and claws, and they loved war more than anything else. Velthar wore a black uniform covered in medals that showed how many worlds he had conquered. 17 star systems had fallen to his armies. The other aliens in the room looked at Velthar with respect and fear. There were the slug-like Malarians who controlled the banking systems, the insect-like Cricks who ran the information networks, and the floating jellyfish creatures called ethereals, who claimed to be the wisest species in the galaxy. They all had one thing in common. They thought they were better than everyone else. Today was special. They were meeting with representatives from a new world that had just been discovered. The planet was called Earth, and its people called themselves humans. The Council had been watching Earth for several months, and they were not impressed. "These humans are weak," said General Korvik, another Zapirian commander. "Their ships have no weapons. Their soldiers look soft. They spend more time talking than fighting." "Indeed," agreed Elder Zilnoth of the Ethereals, his tentacles glowing with satisfaction. "Our scouts report that they actually try to avoid conflict. How pathetic. In the thousands of years since we formed the Council, we have never seen such a peaceful species." Commander Velthar laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Peaceful means weak, and weak species serve strong ones. That is the way of the galaxy." The other Council members nodded in agreement. They had seen this pattern many times before. A new species would be discovered. The Council would offer them a chance to surrender peacefully, and if they refused, their worlds would be bombed from space until they begged for mercy. It was simple and effective. "What do we know about their military?" asked War Minister Teclon of the Cricks, his insect eyes clicking as he spoke. "They have small armies," reported Intelligence Chief Moldar, a slug-like Malarian whose voice was wet and slimy. "Maybe 50 million soldiers across their entire planet. We have more troops on a single warship. Their weapons are primitive. They still use chemical explosives and metal bullets." Chemical explosives? Velthar could not believe what he was hearing. "Do they fight with sticks and stones as well? How did such a backward species even discover space travel?" "Unknown," admitted Moldar. "But their technology is centuries behind ours. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no quantum computers. They are like children playing with toys." The Council members found this very funny. Some laughed. Others made their species' version of amused sounds. The idea that such a weak race might resist the mighty Galactic Council was ridiculous. "Perhaps they will surrender immediately when they see our power," suggested Elder Zilnoth. "It would save everyone time and effort." "Or perhaps," said Velthar with a cruel smile, "we should make an example of them. Show the galaxy what happens to species who are too weak to deserve freedom." Just then, the main doors to the meeting room opened. The guards announced the arrival of the human delegation. All the alien eyes turned to watch as the humans entered. There were only 5 of them. 5 humans in a room with more than 200 aliens. They looked small and fragile compared to the powerful species around them. The leader was a woman with short black hair and dark eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons visible. Behind her walked 4 others, 3 men and 1 woman dressed in similar clothes. But one human was different. He was taller and more muscular than the others. His uniform was darker and had strange patches on the shoulders. Unlike the others, he was clearly a soldier. His eyes moved constantly, watching everything and everyone in the room. The other humans looked calm and friendly, but this one looked dangerous. The woman stepped forward and bowed politely. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Ambassador Sarah Chen of the United Earth Government. We are grateful for this opportunity to meet with you and discuss peaceful relations between our species." Several council members exchanged looks. Her words were respectful, but they seemed too confident for such a weak species. Still, Velthar thought it was probably just ignorance. Humans probably did not understand how powerless they really were. "I am Commander Velthar of the Zapirian Empire," he announced, his voice booming across the room. "I speak for the Galactic Council in this matter. You will listen carefully to what I tell you, human." Ambassador Chen nodded calmly. "Of course, Commander. We are here to listen and to share our own thoughts about how our civilizations might work together." "Work together?" General Korvik burst out laughing. "You speak as if you have a choice in the matter." The human soldier behind the ambassador shifted slightly. His hand moved a few inches closer to his belt, though he still looked relaxed. None of the aliens noticed this small movement. But it was there. "We believe all species have choices," said Ambassador Chen. "Earth offers friendship, trade, and cooperation to any who are interested in peaceful relations." Now the entire council was amused. Elder Zilnoth's tentacles glowed brighter. "How charming. They think they can negotiate as equals." "Let me make something clear, human," said Velthar as he walked closer to the ambassador. "You are not here to negotiate. You are here to receive terms. The terms of your surrender." For the first time, Ambassador Chen looked surprised. "Surrender? Commander, I think there has been some misunderstanding. We came here hoping to establish diplomatic relations, not to discuss surrender." "There is no misunderstanding," Velthar replied coldly. "The Galactic Council has decided that humanity will join our civilization. You will be relocated to mining colonies where you can serve a useful purpose. Your military will be disbanded. Your ships will be destroyed. Your leaders will be replaced with our governors." The human soldier's jaw tightened, but he remained still. The other humans looked shocked and worried, but their ambassador kept her calm expression. "And if we refuse these terms?" she asked quietly. Velthar's red eyes glowed brighter. "Then your cities will burn from space. Your billions will die. Your species will learn what happens to those who defy the Council's will." The room fell silent. Every alien waited to see how the humans would react. Most species begged for mercy at this point. Some cried. A few tried to run. But Ambassador Chen just stood there thinking. "May I have a moment to consult with my team?" she asked. Velthar waved his clawed hand dismissively. "You have 1 minute. Choose wisely, human. It may be the last choice your species ever makes." Ambassador Chen turned to her small team and spoke quietly with them. The aliens watched with amusement as the 5 humans huddled together like scared animals. They whispered among themselves for several seconds before the ambassador turned back to face the council. "Commander Velthar," she said in a clear, steady voice after discussion with my colleagues, "I must respectfully decline your offer." The room exploded in surprised chatter. Aliens made various sounds of shock and disbelief. Some species had never heard anyone refuse the Council's demands before. Even the most warlike races usually tried to negotiate for better terms rather than outright refusing. Commander Velthar stared at the human woman, as if she had grown a second head. "You decline?" His voice was barely controlled anger. "Do you understand what I just told you? Do you comprehend the power you are defying?" "I understand perfectly," Ambassador Chen replied. "You are threatening to commit genocide against my people if we do not submit to slavery." My answer is no. Behind her, the human soldier had moved again. His stance was different now, more balanced, ready for action. His eyes were no longer just watching, they were calculating, measuring distances, identifying threats. But the aliens were too focused on the shocking conversation to notice. General Korvik slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Impossible. No species has ever refused our terms. They would not dare." "Perhaps," suggested Elder Zilnoth, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "They do not truly understand their situation. Their primitive minds cannot grasp the futility of resistance." War Minister Theclon clicked his insect mandibles rapidly. "Our intelligence reports were correct. They are clearly insane. Only madness could explain such stupidity." But Commander Velthar was not interested in explanations. He was angry, very angry. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever spoken to him with such disrespect. Lesser species were supposed to grovel and beg. They were supposed to recognize their betters and submit gracefully. "You think this is a joke?" Velthar roared, his red eyes blazing. "You think your pathetic little world can stand against the might of the Galactic Council?" "We think," said Ambassador Chen calmly, "that every intelligent species deserves to live free. We are prepared to defend that principle. This statement caused even more uproar among the council members. The concept that humans would actually fight back was beyond their understanding. Every species they had encountered before had eventually seen reason and surrendered. Some took longer than others, but they all gave up in the end. With what army? Laughed Intelligence Chief Moldar. Your 50 million soldiers against our 50 billion? Your chemical weapons against our plasma cannons? Your metal ships against our quantum destroyers? We have what we need, the ambassador replied simply. Velthar began pacing around the circular table like a predator circling prey. His boots rang against the metal floor with each step. You have nothing. Your species is weak. Your technology is primitive. Your military is a joke. You are insects pretending to be dragons. The human soldier's hand had moved closer to his belt again. Something small and metallic was partially visible there. A knife handle, though none of the aliens recognized it as a weapon. To them, it looked like a simple tool. Commander, Ambassador Chen tried again. Perhaps we could discuss this more reasonably. Earth is offering genuine friendship and cooperation. We have much to offer in terms of science, culture, and technology. Surely we can find a path forward that benefits everyone. The only path forward, Velthar snarled, is the one I have shown you. Surrender or die. Those are your choices. He stopped pacing and turned to face the human delegation directly. His tall frame towered over the much smaller ambassador, casting a shadow across her face. I will ask you one final time, human. Will you accept our terms? Ambassador Chen met his burning red gaze without flinching. No, Commander. We will not. Something snapped inside Velthar's mind. No one defied him. No one. He had conquered 17 star systems. He had burned entire worlds to ash. He had made species bow before his might and beg for mercy. And this tiny, weak creature from a backward planet dared to tell him no? You worthless, pathetic, miserable excuse for a sentient being. He screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You are bacteria pretending to be people. The other council members watched with fascination. They had seen Velthar angry before, but never like this. Usually he was coldly efficient in his cruelty. This raw fury was something new. Your world will burn, he continued, his voice getting louder with each word. Your cities will be glass. Your people will be ash. Your children will curse your name for the suffering you have brought upon them. Ambassador Chen remained perfectly calm. Are you finished, Commander? This question made Velthar even more furious. How dare she stay so composed? How dare she act as if his threats meant nothing? Did she not understand who he was? What he could do? Finished? He roared. I have not even begun. When I am done with your miserable little world, no one will remember that humanity ever existed. You will be a footnote in history, a cautionary tale about the price of defying the Galactic Council. I see, said the ambassador. And is this how the mighty Galactic Council normally conducts diplomacy? Through threats and shouting? That was the final insult. Velthar's control completely shattered. This worthless human was mocking him. Mocking him. The conqueror of 17 worlds was being treated with disrespect by a creature so weak that she probably could not even lift his weapon. Behind Ambassador Chen, Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez had gone completely still. Every muscle in his body was ready. His hand was now resting casually on his belt, just inches from his combat knife. He had been patient during the negotiations, professional during the threats, but something in the alien commander's tone had changed. The creature was moving from words toward action. Velthar stormed around the table toward the human delegation. His claws were extended, his teeth bared in rage. The other aliens watched with excitement. Finally, they would see this arrogant human put in her place. You want to know how we conduct diplomacy? Velthar snarled as he approached Ambassador Chen. Let me show you. He raised his clawed hand high above his head. For a moment, the entire room held its breath. Then, with all the force of his considerable alien strength, Commander Velthar brought his hand down in a vicious slap across Ambassador Chen's face. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Ambassador Chen's head snapped to the side from the impact. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth where Velthar's claws had cut her skin. That, said Velthar with satisfaction, is how we deal with disrespectful insects. He turned toward the other council members, expecting to see approval and amusement. Instead, he saw something else entirely. They were all staring past him with expressions of shock and horror. Velthar frowned and began to turn back toward the humans, but he never completed the movement. His time had run out. Time seemed to slow down in the diplomatic chamber. The sound of Velthar's slap was still echoing off the metal walls when Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez moved. To the aliens watching, it looked like magic. One moment the human soldier was standing perfectly still behind his ambassador. The next moment he was in motion, faster than their eyes could follow. His hand flashed to his belt and came back up with something that gleamed in the chamber's lights. Rodriguez had spent 15 years as a soldier. He had fought in the brutal tunnel wars on Mars where enemies could appear from any direction in complete darkness. He had survived the siege of New Mumbai, where every second meant the difference between life and death. He had been trained to react instantly to threats, to move without thinking, to kill without hesitation when necessary. The moment Velthar struck Ambassador Chen, Rodriguez's mind shifted from diplomatic protection mode to combat mode. The alien had just committed an act of violence against a protected diplomat. In Rodriguez's world, that meant only one thing: eliminate the threat. His combat knife was a thing of beauty and terror. The blade was made of monomolecular carbon, sharper than anything the aliens had ever seen. It could cut through steel like paper and never dulled. It had been designed for close combat in the confined spaces of Martian mining tunnels, where soldiers needed to kill quickly and quietly. Velthar was still turning when the blade sliced through his neck. The alien commander's reflexes were good by galactic standards, but they were nothing compared to a human who had been forged in the fires of actual combat. By the time Velthar's brain registered that something was wrong, his head was already separating from his shoulders. The cut was perfect, clean, professional. Rodriguez had done this before, though never to an alien. The blade passed through Velthar's neck like it was made of soft cheese. There was barely any resistance at all. For a moment that felt like eternity, Velthar's head remained balanced on his neck through sheer momentum. His red eyes were wide with shock and confusion. His mouth was open as if he was about to speak. Then gravity took hold. The head toppled forward and rolled across the polished surface of the conference table. It bounced once, twice, then came to rest in the center of the circular table, facing the assembled alien dignitaries. Velthar's expression was frozen in a look of complete surprise, as if he could not believe what had just happened to him. His body stood upright for another second before collapsing backward. Dark alien blood sprayed across the floor in a wide arc. The smell of copper and something else, something alien and wrong, filled the air. Rodriguez wiped his blade clean on a cloth from his pocket and slid it back into its sheath. The entire sequence had taken less than 5 seconds from the moment Velthar struck the ambassador until his head hit the table. Rodriguez then stepped protectively in front of Ambassador Chen, his hand ready to draw the knife again if needed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Elder Zilnoth's tentacles flailed wildly as he made a high-pitched shrieking sound that was the ethereal version of screaming. General Korvik jumped backward so fast that he knocked over his chair and fell to the floor. War Minister Theclon's mandibles clicked rapidly in panic, while his insect eyes darted around looking for an escape route. Intelligence Chief Moldar had turned a sickly green color and was making wet, choking sounds. Several of the smaller alien delegates had fainted completely. Others were making various species-specific sounds of horror and disbelief. But what shocked them most was not the violence itself. These were representatives of a galactic empire built on conquest. They had all seen death before. What shocked them was the speed, the efficiency, the complete lack of hesitation or emotion from the human soldier. Rodriguez stood calmly next to his ambassador, watching the alien reactions with professional interest. His breathing was steady, his hands were relaxed. To him, this was just another day at the office. He had neutralized a threat and protected his charge. Mission accomplished. Ambassador Chen touched the cut on her lip with her finger and examined the small amount of blood. The slap had hurt, but she had endured worse during her diplomatic training. She looked around the room at the panicking aliens with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the meeting. "Gentlemen," she said in a clear voice that cut through the noise, "I believe we were discussing terms?" This simple statement caused a fresh wave of panic among the council members. The human had just killed their most feared military commander without breaking a sweat, and now she was asking to continue negotiations as if nothing had happened. General Korvik managed to get back to his feet, though his legs were shaking. You killed him," he stammered. "You actually killed Commander Velthar." "My security officer responded to an unprovoked attack on a diplomatic envoy," Ambassador Chen replied matter-of-factly. "I believe that falls under standard protection protocols." "Protection protocols?" Elder Zilnot's voice was several octaves higher than normal. "He cut off his head." "Yes," agreed the ambassador. "Very efficiently, too. Sergeant Rodriguez is quite skilled at his job." Rodriguez nodded slightly but said nothing. His job was protection, not conversation. He continued scanning the room, evaluating which aliens might pose the next threat. Several of them had weapons, but they all seemed too shocked to use them. War Minister Theklan was staring at Velthar's head on the table. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Velthar was a warrior. He conquered 17 star systems. He cannot be dead." "I am afraid he is quite dead," said Ambassador Chen. "Perhaps we should discuss more reasonable terms for cooperation between our species. Terms that do not involve threats, ultimatums, or physical violence." The aliens looked at each other with growing fear. They were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. These humans were not the weak, peaceful creatures they had expected. The soldier had moved faster than their enhanced alien reflexes could track. His weapon had cut through Velthar's armored skin like it was nothing. If one human could kill their greatest military commander so easily, what could their armies do? What kind of weapons did they really have? What other surprises were waiting for the Council if they decided to attack Earth? Intelligence Chief Moldar was the first to find his voice. What do you want?" he asked weakly. Ambassador Chen smiled politely. "The same thing I wanted when I walked into this room. Peaceful cooperation between equals, trade agreements, cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, the benefits of friendship between our civilizations." "And if we refuse?" asked General Korvik, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Ambassador Chen's smile never wavered, but something cold appeared in her eyes. "Well," she said conversationally, "I suppose that would be up to you. Though I should mention that Sergeant Rodriguez is not the most dangerous human in our military. He is actually considered quite gentle by our standards." Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile at this comment. He had always been more of a precision fighter than a berserker. There were others in Earth's military who would have made this situation much messier. The aliens stared at the decapitated head of their former commander and tried to imagine humans who were more dangerous than the one standing in front of them. The thought was terrifying. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Within 3 hours of Velthar's death, every major news network in Council space was broadcasting the story. The security cameras in the diplomatic chamber had recorded everything, and the footage was being played on repeat across thousands of worlds. On the desert planet of Kethmore, a group of reptilian traders stopped their business to watch the recording. They stared in silence as the human soldier moved with impossible speed. As Velthar's head rolled across the table, as the human woman calmly asked to continue negotiations, "Play it again," whispered one of the traders. They watched it 17 times before anyone spoke again. "How fast did he move?" asked another trader. "I counted the frames," said a third. "From the time the alien struck the human woman to the time his head separated from his body. 2.7 seconds. The group fell silent again. They had all heard stories about Velthar, the butcher of 17 worlds, the Zapirian who had never lost a battle, and he had been killed by a single human in less than 3 seconds. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the ice world of Frosthelm, the native blue-skinned humanoids gathered in their crystal cities to watch the footage. On the gas giant mining stations of the Helix Nebula, workers stopped their dangerous jobs to stare at their screens in amazement. The reaction was the same everywhere: shock, disbelief, and a growing sense that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. On the Zapirian homeworld of Keldrath, The military command was in complete chaos. General Cormac, Velthar's second-in-command, stood in the war room surrounded by tactical displays and communication screens. Every few minutes, another report came in from their intelligence networks. "Sir," reported Captain Zeklon, "we have confirmed the authenticity of the footage. Commander Velthar is dead." "I can see that, you fool," Cormac roared. "What I want to know is how. How did a primitive human kill our greatest warrior?" "The weapon appears to be some kind of molecular blade," said intelligence analyst Malden. "Our scientists are studying the footage, but they believe the cutting edge is only a few atoms wide. It would slice through almost any material. Molecular weapons," Cormac's red eyes widened. "But their technology is supposed to be centuries behind ours." "Perhaps," suggested Tactical Officer Velnock, "we were given incorrect information about human capabilities." This comment was followed by an uncomfortable silence. The Zapirian military had based their entire strategy on the assumption that humans were weak and backward. If that assumption was wrong, their planned invasion of Earth would be much more difficult than expected. "Get me everything we have on human military technology," ordered Cormac. "I want to know about their weapons, their ships, their tactics, everything." As his staff rushed to comply, Cormac stared at the frozen image of Velthar's head on the conference table. His old friend and rival, the most feared commander in the Zapirian fleet, reduced to a trophy on a human's negotiating table. Meanwhile, on dozens of other worlds, different reactions were taking place. On the mining world of Krakton, the enslaved Deltari workers whispered excitedly among themselves as they watched the footage on smuggled communication devices. "Did you see how fast he moved?" asked Foreman Deltar as he pretended to inspect the mineral extraction equipment. "Like lightning," replied worker Nextall. "The Zapirian did not even have time to react." "Maybe," said Deltar quietly. "These humans are the allies we have been waiting for." The Deltari had been slaves to the Zapirian Empire for over 200 years. Their own military had been destroyed in the conquest, their people scattered to labor camps across the galaxy. But now, for the first time in generations, they had seen proof that the Zapirians could be defeated. Similar conversations were happening on slave worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had given up hope of freedom were suddenly asking new questions. If one human could kill Velthar so easily, what could an army of humans do? On the aquatic world of Blue Haven, the amphibious nautiloids were having emergency meetings in their underwater cities. They had been independent members of the Galactic Council, but they had always lived in fear of Zapirian expansion. "The implications are staggering," said Prime Minister Glowfin as he addressed the assembled government officials. "If humans possess such advanced weapons and reflexes, they might be the military power we need to balance Zapirian aggression. But what if they are just as aggressive as the Zapirians?" asked Defense Minister Tidashan. "What if they decide to conquer us instead?" "Did you watch the footage?" replied Glowfin. "The human only acted when their diplomat was attacked. They showed restraint until provoked, then responded with overwhelming force. That suggests discipline and control, not mindless aggression." The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The nautiloids would secretly reach out to Earth, hoping to establish contact with these mysterious humans. Across the galaxy, intelligence agencies were working frantically to reassess their files on human civilization. What they found was disturbing. The Ethereal Intelligence Service had been monitoring Earth for months, but they had focused mainly on human culture and technology. They had paid little attention to military matters, assuming that such a peaceful species would have nothing interesting to offer. Now they were discovering their mistake. Human history was filled with warfare on a scale that shocked even the battle-hardened Zapirians. World wars that killed hundreds of millions. Nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire continents. Chemical and biological weapons banned by their own people because they were too horrible to use. And the humans had fought these wars against themselves with primitive technology. What could they do now? With advanced space-age materials and energy systems, the Krik's hive mind was particularly disturbed by what they found in human military doctrine. While most galactic species fought in predictable patterns, humans seemed to specialize in chaotic, unpredictable tactics. They studied their enemies, adapted quickly, and used whatever weapons and strategies were most effective. Even worse, humans appeared to have no concept of honorable warfare. They used camouflage, ambushes, psychological warfare, and deception as standard tactics. They fought at night in bad weather, and in terrain that other species considered impossible to navigate. One Crix analyst summarized the situation in a report that would later become famous. Humans do not fight fair. They fight to win. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery came from the Malarian banking networks. While reviewing trade records and economic data, they realized that Earth's exploration ships were not what they seemed to be. The vessels were too large, too heavily built, and carried too much power generation capacity for simple scientific missions. "These are not exploration ships," reported Chief Analyst Slim Talk to the Malarian High Council. "These are warships disguised as research vessels. The humans have been conducting military reconnaissance while pretending to be peaceful explorers." The implications were terrifying. If Earth's peaceful exploration fleet was actually a military scouting force, what kind of weapons did they really have? How many ships were hiding in the Sol system? How long had the humans been preparing for war? On Earth itself, the news of the incident was met with a mixture of pride and concern. President Martinez addressed the Global Assembly from the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. "My fellow humans," she began, "you have all seen the footage from Harmony's Edge. I want to assure you that Ambassador Chen and her team are safe and that Sergeant Rodriguez acted appropriately to protect our diplomatic mission." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "But I also want to be clear about what this means. The galaxy now knows that humanity will not be bullied or threatened. We came in peace, offering friendship and cooperation. When that offer was rejected and our representative was attacked, we defended ourselves. The choice of what happens next belongs to the Galactic Council. We remain committed to peaceful relations with any species that treats us with respect, but we will not submit to slavery or allow our world to be destroyed by those who mistake diplomacy for weakness." As the president spoke, military bases across Earth and the solar system were quietly moving to high alert. The exploration fleet that had been spread across nearby star systems began moving back toward Earth. Weapons that had been hidden were brought online. Defenses that had been disguised as scientific installations revealed their true purpose. Humanity had hoped for peace, but they had prepared for war. And now the galaxy was about to discover just how well they had prepared. The Zapirian war fleet that jumped into the Sol system 3 weeks later was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 500 massive warships, each one larger than a human city, emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields, their weapons charged with enough power to crack planets. Admiral Cormac stood on the bridge of the flagship Death's Glory, staring at the blue and green world that hung in the darkness ahead. This was Earth, home of the creatures that had dared to kill Commander Velthar. Soon it would be nothing but burning ash. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, "we are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system." "Of course you are," Cormac replied dismissively. "They're primitive nuclear power plants and chemical rockets. Begin the bombardment. Target their major cities first. I want them to watch their world burn before they die." But the sensor officer looked confused. "Sir, these readings do not match primitive technology. I'm detecting quantum power signatures, antimatter reactors, and weapons systems that—" His voice trailed off as new contacts appeared on the display. Ships were emerging from behind planets, moons, and asteroids throughout the Sol system. Not the small exploration vessels the Zapirians had expected, but massive warships that had been hidden and waiting. "How many ships?" asked Cormac, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Counting now, sir. 100, 200, 300. The officer's voice grew higher with each number. "Sir, I'm detecting over 400 human warships, and they are all powering weapons." Cormac stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The intelligence reports had said that humans had no military to speak of. But the ships surrounding his fleet were larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Zapirian navy. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Let me speak to whoever commands this rabble." The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of a human ship. A woman in a dark blue uniform sat in the captain's chair, looking completely calm despite facing the largest invasion force in galactic history. Behind her, human crew members worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet," she said. Cormac noticed that it was the same human who had been at the diplomatic meeting, though now she wore a military uniform instead of a diplomatic one. "You are trespassing in human space. Please state your intentions, Admiral. Cormac was shocked. You were a diplomat. I hold dual positions, Chen replied matter-of-factly. Ambassador when we are talking, Admiral when we are fighting. Right now I am very much in my military capacity. Cormac tried to regain his composure. I am Admiral Cormac of the Zapirian Empire. I command 500 ships and demand your immediate surrender. I see 497 ships, Chen corrected him. We destroyed 3 of your scouts when they tried to probe our outer system defenses last week. This was news to Cormac. 3 scout ships had gone missing, but his staff had assumed they were delayed, not destroyed. The humans had been picking off Zapirian ships without the fleet command even knowing about it. Nevertheless, Cormac continued, you are outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a nice smile. Admiral, I think you may have misunderstood the situation. You see, we have been expecting you. On the tactical display, Cormac watched as more human ships appeared. They had been hidden in asteroid fields, powered down to avoid detection. The human fleet was larger than his own, and they had positioned themselves perfectly for an ambush. Impossible, he whispered. We have been monitoring your communications for months, Admiral Chen continued. We knew you would come here seeking revenge for Commander Velthar's death. We also knew exactly when you would arrive because your empire is predictable in its arrogance. As she spoke, the human ships began moving into attack formation. Their movements were precise and coordinated, showing a level of tactical skill that impressed even the veteran Zapirian officers. Your ships, said Cormac, struggling to understand what he was seeing. They are too advanced. The intelligence report said you were primitive. The intelligence reports were wrong about many things, Admiral Chen replied. Would you like me to explain where your people went wrong? Before Cormac could answer, she continued. First, you assumed that peaceful meant weak. That was your biggest mistake. We avoided conflict because we choose peace, not because we cannot fight. Second, you thought our exploration ships were defenseless. In reality, they were scouting your territories and analyzing your technology while you ignored them. Every human ship you saw was gathering intelligence about your capabilities. Third, you believed our technology was primitive because we use different approaches than yours. Our weapons may not look like yours, but they are far more effective. To demonstrate her point, Admiral Chen nodded to someone off-screen. A human ship fired a single projectile at a small asteroid. The rock, which had been several hundred meters across, simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. It was there one moment and gone the next. Antimatter warheads guided by quantum-entangled targeting systems. Chen explained casually. Each one of our ships carries enough firepower to destroy your entire fleet. Cormac felt cold fear creeping up his spine. What do you want? The same thing we wanted at the beginning, Admiral Chen replied. Peaceful coexistence. Mutual respect. An end to Zapirian aggression against innocent worlds. And if we refuse? Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Admiral, you have brought 500 ships to attack a world of 8 billion people. You have threatened genocide against my species. You have declared war on humanity. She paused. What do you think happens to civilizations that declare war on humans? As if to emphasize her point, more human ships appeared on the sensors. These were different from the warships. Larger, stranger, clearly built for purposes that the Zapirians could not understand. Those are colony ships, Admiral Chen explained. Each one carries 50,000 humans and everything they need to build a new civilization. We have been launching them for years, spreading throughout the galaxy while you ignored us as primitive. By now there are human colonies in over 200 star systems. Each colony is protected by its own defense fleet. Each fleet is in communication with Earth and with each other. If you destroy Earth, those colonies will hunt down every Zapirian world and return the favor. The tactical situation was becoming clear to Cormac. Even if his fleet could somehow defeat the ships surrounding them, there were human military forces scattered across the galaxy. The Zapirian Empire would face a war on hundreds of fronts against an enemy they had underestimated in every possible way. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Simple, Admiral Chen replied. The Zapirian Empire will withdraw from all conquered worlds and grant independence to every species you have enslaved. You will pay reparations for the damage you have caused. You will submit to monitoring by a coalition of free worlds to ensure you never again attempt galactic conquest. And if we agree to this, then you will be allowed to exist as a peaceful member of the galactic community. You will have trade rights, diplomatic relations, and all the benefits of civilization, but you will never again threaten another species with extinction. Cormac looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They all understood the choice before them. Accept the human terms or face annihilation. I will need to consult with my government, he said finally. Of course, Admiral Chen replied. You have 24 hours. After that, we will assume you have chosen war and respond accordingly. The screen went dark, leaving the Zapirian fleet alone with their thoughts and their fear. 1 year later, Ambassador Chen stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly on the rebuilt station New Harmony. Representatives from over 300 species filled the chamber, including many that had been enslaved by the old council. The universe is large enough for all of us, she said in her closing remarks. There is room for every species to grow, to explore, to build their own destiny among the stars. But there is no room for empires that destroy worlds and enslave peoples. Humanity offers its friendship to any who want it, its protection to any who need it, and its strength to defend the principles of freedom and dignity for all intelligent life. In the audience, a small group of former Zapirian officers listened carefully. They had spent the past year learning what it meant to live as equals rather than conquerors. It was a difficult adjustment, but most had found it preferable to extinction. Admiral Cormac, now serving as the Zapirian representative to the Assembly, raised his hand to speak. The Zapirian people acknowledge our past crimes and accept our new role in the galaxy, he said formally. We pledge to honor the principles of the reformed Assembly and to make amends for our previous actions. He paused, then added more personally, we also acknowledge that humanity has shown us a better path. A path where strength serves justice rather than conquest. Ambassador Chen nodded politely. Welcome to the community of free worlds, Admiral. As the session ended and the representatives began to leave, Chen looked out through the station's great windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human colonies were building new cities on distant worlds,